In this video, we are going to finish the polish stage of our run cycle animation by polishing the arms. Whenever you are working with forward kinematic chains, like our arms, you need to start from the root of the chain and then go down to the tip of the chain. So in this case, we will start with the shoulders, then work on the arms, then forearms, and finally hands. To polish the shoulder animation, I will work first on the rotation. But this time I won't be isolating each rotation channel one by one, but I will work on the 3 channels at the same time. The idea is to smooth out the shoulder rotation, make sure that we don't have any weird movement into the shoulder or glitches. And the second thing is to make sure that the extremes reads well and that we push the pose, so that we get a nice and contrasted animation. The thing to remember is that the shoulder lead the motion of the torso. The shoulder pull the whole chest up. So rotation-wise, we should avoid making the shoulder drag too much. So curve-wise, it's a little more complex to explain than what we did with the spine. But my method is to move the keys channel by channel and see how the character behaves per channel, and then work on the pose. So in this case, this is the moment where the shoulder should be hitting its extreme pose a little before the chest. So I'm trying to push the shoulder up and then polish the curve, make it a little smoother so that I don't have weird left to right motion during the transition. If we have a look to the final curve here, we can see that it has a pretty classic shape in the end. We get a plateau on the X rotation and the Z rotation whenever we are reaching the extreme. So it means that the shoulder is not rotating that much once it hits its highest pose, whether it's forward or backward. And then we have the fast transition during the passing pose. The work on the Y rotation curve is less sensitive. We do have to work on it because it could cause a gimbal lock, but the twisting motion that is driven by the Y Euler rotation is not quite natural. But once combined with the X and Z rotation curves, it blends pretty smoothly. So the idea is just to kind of fix the orientation of the shoulder on those specific poses. I know it can sound a bit abstract here, but what I'm trying to avoid is any distortions in the shoulder shape, while the X and Z curve are here to drive the motion. Don't forget to use the motion path to double check your arcs and spacing, and that you can use the tail of the bone or tip of the bone to calculate this motion path. In this case, it results in showing you the tip of the shoulder, not the root of the clavicles. At this stage, you can call the shoulder polishing done, or you can push it a little further using location. Using the Y and Z location curve, I will make the shoulder drag a bit just before it hits its extreme, but I don't want to delay the shoulder, so I reset the pose by moving the keys that has a 0 value on frame 6. And then I will slightly push the shoulder down during the passing pose, so that we input weight into the shoulder, as if just after the impact it was getting pulled down by its own weight. Then I will do the same in the pose. Just after it reaches its highest point, I will push it a little higher, as if there was momentum into the shoulder that make it go a little further up. So I keep it very subtle. The idea is just to emphasize what we did before. Whenever the shoulder is in its down pose, I make it drag a little bit, just a touch, and I push it down a little more. And when it has reached its highest point, 1 or 2 frames later, I will just raise it a little more to bring a bit of momentum into the shoulder motion. The heavy lifting was done with the rotation, and this is what will bring you nice arcs, and then you can bring some texture to your animation using location. Again, it must be subtle, because if you push it too far, you will break the shape of the shoulder and it will look pointy or out of place. Polishing the arm is pretty straightforward. One of the first things you may do is track the position of the elbow tweak controller, so that you can easily track your arcs from the elbow. I also often use the hand position using the wrist tweaker controller, but at this stage it will be better to focus on the elbow position. While on the reference we have seen that there was a slight slowing down during the passing pose and then reaccelerating whether forward or backward, this is really noticeable when using extreme slow motion. And when I've tried, it felt a bit weird. So in my case, I prefer to have a fast motion during the passing and ease into the extreme and hold the pose, which clearly shows when we look at the spacing on those arcs. We have a large spacing during the passing and it gets tighter on the up pose. Shape-wise, from a side view, the arc is very smooth. From the front view, my main concern was not to make the elbow going too far on the outside, because the faster you run, the closer to the body your elbow will be. And then I make sure it goes slightly on the inside on both extremes. Curve-wise, we have a smooth sinusoidal shape regarding the X rotation, which mainly influences the distance between the chest and the elbow from the front view. And then the Z and Y rotation curve mainly drive the swing of the arm. So we can spot on them our usual plateau shape when we reach the extreme with the fast transition during the passing. I've also slightly worked the W curve just to remove any glitches. The W curve is generally involved whenever you are trying to reach an extreme with the other curve and the quaternion can't solve it. So unless you are doing a full revolution, the W curve is generally not that much involved. But it does need some attention on such a moving part since it's along a forward kinematic chain, it's inheriting the movement of the torso, then the movement of the shoulder, etc. So we do need to double check the motion path of the elbow, and my Y, Z and X rotation curve are kind of smooth in the graph editor. I'm just double checking that the W curve is not bringing any glitches. In the end, as for every cycle we've been working on, make sure that your first and last keys are the same and they are aligned.